of brands, from Lowe's to Ally to PGA Tour to even NASCAR to just a host of brands. And so we've been able to do a lot of content. And really, the niche that I've been able to find is just what I've said before. So many of these brands have now are looking back and almost kind of deconstructing the way that they've always gone to market when it comes to content, when it comes to how people consume content, when it comes to, again, who is the culture. And they want so desperately to be a part of that, because we also know, again, let's be honest on this call, they've also ravaged that, in the past. And so now we can now be the flag bearers. We can be on the front line of being able to push our unique messages. So I've just been able to, in my tenure, when I've been able to be behind the scenes, whether it's in corporate boardrooms, whether it's been in marketing kickoff meetings, when I look around the table, I'm the only Black person there 9 times out of 10. But then it's also when a brand will mess up. So think about, like, when Pepsi did that commercial about protesting and it was trash. Or think about when H&M puts a kid with a monkey on a shirt, or whatever it was that they did, right? Like, they reveal each and every day that they don't have Black people in those rooms when they push out messaging, when they push out campaigns. So I saw that and recognized that and realized, one, we can do just as good a content as any other commercial or social media content or pre-roll content on a sports channel. We can do all the same things, and then we can bring our cultural insights. So that's been the niche that I've really been able to play in, is working with these brands to show that the secret sauce is us. The secret sauce is the perspective that we bring, the insights that we bring, the stories that we bring. So that's just where, again, where we play in the sandbox. And I'm also, at the same token, I'm able to give opportunities to other creators, whether it's videographers, whether it's designers, whether it is, you name it. I've been able to give those opportunities to people who otherwise wouldn't be able to do that. And so it's step one is opening up the door and have a seat at the table. Step two is bringing people with me. And so that's just what I've been able to do. And so that is what has resonated, and that's where we've found a lot of success.
Yeah, I love that. We talked a lot yesterday about collaboration and networking, right? Because we, again, are the experts. And one, we need to have a seat at the table. Jessica's probably going to say we need to bring our own table, right?
Yeah, and you build the table and you. Let me go, but yeah, you build. What happens over the course of time? That's probably step three. What happens over the course of time is you now have your own table, and now we put out, and now we're end to end. We can create the messages, and then we distribute the content, right? Like, so that is the goal. Thank you for bringing that up. Sorry to cut you off.
So that's a 3-step process. Have a seat at the table, bring others along, and then build your own table, right?
Yeah.
So Lorraine and then Deja, how are you leaning into your niche? What are you doing to really build the riches and the niches in the space that you play? Go ahead, Deja.
I mean, it's kind of hard to follow up after that, but because I so much agree, right. But I think, like, similar to what was said, and pretty much like, leveraging my experiences and having a stint in corporate and being the only like person of color at the table, especially doing a lot of work in the social impact space, and a lot of these like programs and things like that are catered towards people that look like us, but they're not being on awareness or cultural sensitivity to certain things, and the decision making process about even from who should be invited to certain opportunities, who should be excluded, and things like that. So I think similar to what was said, just bringing our own secret sauce in terms of like diversity and lived experiences. I think for my space too, being twofold. So one, being a business owner, but also someone who is a creator and working with brands on two different sides of the spectrum from sometimes, from different aspects. I think also like on my personal branding side of being a creator, I think my experiences in terms of PR. So a lot of times with my content, I'm talking about like how I view things from a public relations standpoint, and there being so many like brands that are like messing up things because they're not being sensitive to Black creators. So that's like one area that I've been able to kind of like niche myself out in, is just like sharing my experiences, because I'm not the traditional. Sometimes I do lifestyle stuff, but I'm not like the. I'm more so from a business perspective. So I think that's like a another like area that I try to like further niche myself down as well.
I'm going to come back to that in 1 second. Lorraine, Jessica, anything to add in terms of identifying that niche and really leaning in it to build your brand?
Well, having a bunch of conversations with Jenny and Jessica, I've been able to learn a lot about, where I need to niche down at as far as my content. I mostly deal with direct to consumer. So I'm really leaning into the mom, the work at home, just letting people know, especially people of color or women of color, that there's many different options that you have. A lot of us will get stuck in a place, or stuck, just like she said, doing the lifestyle content, or stuck just feeling like, the only thing they have to contribute is, oh, I'm taking care of kids, I'm kicking them, cleaning, I'm doing all this other stuff. Well, we all know with the pandemic and everything that happened during that it's not about just being outside of the house all the time. Yeah, you need some both, but you can do a lot. You can run a lot from inside of the house. So that's just been where I've been niching down at. It's been a journey for me, from kind of switching over from, being a business owner and just really leaning into the storytelling of, content and telling my stories and giving my personal points of views, and, letting people know where I've come from, and being able to connect with certain people in that audience that look like me or have had lived experiences like me. So for me, that's where the niche down has come. And it's really hard for me to kind of niche down, because we talked about this before. I got ADD. I want to be all over the place. Like ideas are constantly flowing, you know what I'm saying? So, just narrowing it down has been a challenge for me, but I am enjoying the process right now.
Perfect. Yeah, I think Jessica will, she's already branded you the Black Love Specialist, right?
The Black
but,
Love? No.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, Deja, you said something about business planning, right? Or kind of setting objectives. And I'm laughing because I don't like doing it. I'm going to say there's probably some other folks on the panel that don't like doing it. But are you one doing business planning today? And are you setting goals and objectives? And what does that process look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I of course like I plan for the year, and I'm more so like to consider like a guide. I'm not very strict because certain things can come up, and I always want to allow for like flexibility if like certain opportunities do come afloat. But like in general, like I like to plan like for out for the year, and then by quarter. So I'll go back and I'll revisit like and determine what are the things that I want to accomplish like from a quarterly basis, and if it making sure it aligns with like what my yearly plan is. And then I think also too like staying accountable to that. So whether it's like in my business, like I have a business partner, so we're able to hold each other accountable. But if you don't have that, finding someone like your peer or even like a business coach that can like help you like stick to those goals.
No, that's great advice, especially for some of us that are solopreneurs. Gerard, what are you doing in terms of business planning and setting goals and objectives?
They hit on a lot of good points. It's hard to differentiate from that. I'd say for sure is knowing. Another thing I'd add on though is knowing what your year looks like, right? So for us, since we deal with a lot of brands, the first quarter is routinely busy for us, right? Between and just the nature of kind of the content that we build, we're always doing a lot around Black History Month. We tend to always be doing stuff around MLK, right? Like that's when brands want to put out their messages. So we tend to be pretty Women's History Month in March. So we've done a lot of content around those kind of pillars. So that's pretty, dense for us. And then the summer tends to be a little bit light because a lot of these corporations, a lot of people are working, moms and families, right? So summers tend to slow down a little bit, but then that's really a good time for us is to really start planning for the back half of the year or even for the year that's following the next year. So really getting a chance of knowing what your messages are. If you're an individual creator, being able to plan out what content you're going to post when are messages really going to be maybe conflicting, right? Knowing that, like, let's just take for what is it? There's an election next year, right? Like, there's just going to be a lot of noise, a lot of messages out there. So just knowing what's going out and what's going to happen when. But I'd say a big part of planning too is just understanding what your year looks like and coinciding what you want to post and what content you want to get out there around, whether it is, if you're a content creator around mental health, knowing that mental health month is, what's that, May, right? So knowing when mental health month is. So just knowing what kind of messages are going to be out there and what kind of campaigns and all that. So just really, I build on everything she said with just understanding what your year looks like.
I like that approach because usually by the time I'm thinking about it, the month is already here.
Right.
But
Right.
getting in front of it, right, and planning it out for the quarter or for the year. I mean, I'm going to go to you because if you're anything like me, and I'm suspecting you are, what are you doing, if anything, around business planning, goals and objectives? We need some energy from Deja and Gerard.
Yeah, because the ADD thing really messes with me. But I've learned how to work around that. So for me, it's hard for me to quarterly, week, those types of things. But I have a general broad overview of the vision. Okay, I know that at X amount of time or for the year, these are some things that I'm going to be focusing on. Or these are some goals. So for instance, one of my goals this year was to start a series. I didn't know what I was going to start it on, who I was going to talk about, what niche it was going to be in. But now that I have laid that, or I set that vision for myself, I've done several series. Like I'm in the middle of doing series right now with, single stay-at-home moms and stuff like that. So for me, like that broad overview is something that really kind of anchors my thinking. And then because I'm a viral marketing strategist, so, if you're trying to go viral and you're looking to use that as a monetization strategy, that it changes. You know what I'm saying? So today my content plan might be, I'm going to talk about the Beyonce concert, and then World 3 starts tomorrow, and I gotta, if I want to be viral, I got to get in front of that. So you can have some broad, idea of what you're going to talk about. Like again, going back to the Beyonce concert, I know they're fans. I know women are mostly, fans, and I know that that is my target audience. So we've already known that the tour was going to start in May. So I've been laying tracks for that, laying content out there so people can find me in those buckets, starting in December or January or whatever. So my plan, I do plan, but it's not as, I would say, structured, because it's hard for me to be so structured.
Yeah, I get it. I absolutely do. So some good nuggets here. Before we shift our conversation into funding and monetization, any questions from the audience? If you have questions, you can drop them in the chat or bring yourselves to the stage and we'll answer those questions for you. So let's talk about funding and monetization, right? So Lorraine, I know this is your space. What are you doing to monetize today, right? We know, again, these platforms aren't reliable. We have to have other strategies. So what's your approach when you really think about monetizing yourself, monetizing your brand, and really funding your business?
My strategy is consistency and predictability. I like to be able to predict revenue. And I don't necessarily, my goal is always to make sure that I have the type of income that I want to have coming in. And then on top of that, I will go after like brand deals, or I'll go after, working with corporate accounts and things like that. Because for me, I've been in corporate America since, since I got out the gate. my first job was as an administrative assistant at the age of 16. You know, I've been in sales since I was 18 years old. So the corporate games are something that I'm very familiar with. So I never wanted to rely on somebody else being able to determine what my paycheck is and being able to give and take away. You know what I'm saying? So just like Gerard said, you got to start bringing the table. You know what I'm saying? So I'm always focused on, okay, let me bring my table first, and then let me offer somebody else a seat at it after it's established. So that's been my monetization strategy. I've been online, you know, preaching from the get-go when these platforms started monetizing its content creators. All right, cool. Let them pay you for what you're going to get online and do anyway, which is hopefully promoting your brand and promoting your business. But at the same time, you need to be focused on monetizing yourself, whether that's through digital products or brand partnerships, whether that's through you offering courses and classes or what have you. Let the platform pay you to promote your things and to grow and build your audience. Okay, because you'd be doing that anyway. But never sit there. I don't care how much money that they're paying you. Never sit there and rely on them funding your life, because I mean, we've got a lot of creators that were making buku money. I'm talking about $35,000, $70,000 a month from Facebook Reels program, for example. Hell, I was making five to 10 grand per month. I mean, people's household bills are, you know, 6 and 7 grand a month. A lot of Americans are not making 10 grand a month. That's a significant. Take it away. There are a lot of people that are in some bad positions because they focused on that platform paying them and they didn't necessarily grow their brand, or they didn't put anything back. They didn't build any infrastructure. They didn't find any type of way to own traffic so that they can continuously monetize it themselves.
No, that's a good point. And before we go into Deja and Gerard, I'm going to ask you guys to both talk about how you're funding and obviously monetizing your business, which is probably a different perspective. And Gigi's asked a question that's more relevant to you both as business owners. Content creating when you are building a personal brand, but also as a brand, as a business, right? So Deja, Gerard, should they be different? Are they the same? What does that look like for you? And Deja, I'll start with you because I know you're in both spaces. Mm-hmm.
So mostly, like, because I'm a service provider, most of my income is coming from the services that I do through my public relations agency. But within that, I have different like streams of income. So I have like where I do like done for you services. So like brands and individuals can reach out to my agency and we would do PR for them. But in addition to that, we also do like coaching and consulting. So we have like strategy sessions, things like that. So that's on that side. On my personal brand side, I also do speaking engagements. So I'm often paid for speaking opportunities, talking about like public relations and things like that. So that's why initially I was talking about the importance as a creator is to build out your brand, because you can use your expertise to talk about, to get booked for other things outside of just, doing brand deals, etc. I do some brand deals. It's not the main focus, but that is like a source for me too. I would say also like affiliate links and referrals, because my audience trusts me in terms of like different tools and things that I use to do my business as a source. So whether that's like other publicists or other creatives in the space that follow me, they will go to my page in terms of like looking to see like what tools I'm using. So that's like another source for me as well. So I would say those are like the main ways that I am generating like income in my business.
Perfect. And Gerard, what about you? And Deja, if you've got links that are relevant to this discussion, feel free to drop them in the chat.
Okay.
Gerard, what is your, and again, I know your space is a little different, but what does it look like for you in terms of funding and monetization?
Yeah, very similar to Deja. I mean, there's really not a lot I can say that differentiates what she said. I think overall, how we're set up is, I mean, we're 90 something percent of, we work with a brand or a nonprofit or an individual or whoever that client is that pays us to produce content on their behalf. That is getting to monetization. Where I eventually want to get is getting into more original / licensed content, to where if we talk about monetization, that is something that lives on beyond platforms. And I know that's kind of been the theme of this discussion is, if YouTube were to go down, if TikTok were to get banned, if any of these platforms that we all generally tend to create content for, if something happens, what do you do? Right. And I think that is something to keep in mind as we move forward, because there are things that are just completely out of our control when it comes to being a content creator. We may or may not be able to influence whether legislation happens to TikTok. We may or may not be able to leverage, what the future of Twitter and how it's positioned and its credibility can be. What we can do is manage the content that we create and figure out how to have that create income in purgatory. That is what happens with white-owned production companies that create movies, that do license deals, that get money in purgatory. That is what, so that is the name of the game. So I think the more that we can start as content creators to get into it, to merge into that lane, I think the better we can become. But to bring it back to the question, again, Deja nailed it. Like, even for me, I probably lack a good bit with my own personal brand. Just like Deja, I'll get paid for speaking engagements. I'm on panels like this. I tend to do a lot of thought leadership kind of stuff because of my expertise and the services I offer and the tenure that I've had within my career. So I tend to get that. I probably, in one of my own goals of getting better, of creating my own personal brand content, but because of the expertise and the services and then what my business is able to put out, that tends to get more, that tends to get attention, but a lot of it does get routed through just who I am, through my network. So I think I would definitely focus in, like Deja said, I would definitely focus in on, depending on what your business is too. That's a big part of it. But depending on that, I would try to regulate and make sure I keep whatever my business in a tight little vertical, and then use your personal brand to amplify it, and as a megaphone almost.
Oh, I like that. Using your personal brand to amplify. No, that's good. So speaking of content, we've got some content being created right now. Welcome, Lanisha Mohib, to the stage. If you'll take a minute to introduce yourselves or introduce yourself and tell us who you are and tell us about your brand, Lanisha.
Hey, everybody. I'm Lanisha Mohib. I am a virtual accountant, CFO based in Chicago, and I essentially own an accounting firm that help business owners organize their finances. So I'm actually in Houston right now for a video and photo shoot for content. So I essentially take very complex financial theories and concepts and break it down into layman's terms for people to digest and not to feel overwhelmed or intimidated by it.
So relevant conversation for you to come in on. So we're talking about funding and monetization as content creators, but also to build your brand. Any additional perspective to add, Lanisha, in terms of how content creators can, one, fund, being creators in the creator economy, but also to build their brand out, to monetize, because again, we know these platforms aren't reliable.
Yeah, I came into the conversation that Deja was pretty much hitting it spot on with. If there's tools or systems, software that you're using to either service your clients or customers, to build your audience, those tech tools, that tech stack has budgets to pay us. And if you're already in a giving spirit to refer people, you should be having those conversations about affiliate compensation and referral compensation, and not just on a one-time basis, but as you continue to put out more content, how can you build a long-term relationship? So in my instance, I have relationships with QuickBooks. I have relationships with ADP, Patriot software. So all those tools that I'm already using, and I'm going to probably refer it to my clients. They can pay me for referring clients instead of me trying to figure out other ways to bring in revenue.
Perfect. No, that's really good timing. So I know one thing we talk about in the innovation space is bootstrapping a lot. And, a lot of times that's going out to family and friends. And again, for us as Black content creators, we may not be able to do that, right? We may not have that network, but we can also just thinking about, how we can start content creation with minimal investment, maybe existing equipment and resources. So again, if you have affiliate links, drop them in the chat. Thank you, Deja and Gerard, for dropping yours. Nisha, if you have yours, drop it there. Lorraine, I know you've got some affiliate links as well. But there's ways that you can go out, and I think Five Below, Dollar Tree, or Dollar General, they all have equipment today, right? So you can start with minimal investment and build out from there. Any questions or any thoughts from the audience before we shift the conversation?
Oh, Deja mentioned digital products too. That's a really great way to teach one thing and get paid multiple times.
Yes.
The only caveat I would just encourage y'all to add to your to-do list is to make sure that your state isn't charging a sales tax for that. Because during the pandemic, states lost a lot of money on us not actually going out into the world and spending money. So they found out that, businesses and entrepreneurs were actually making money online through digital teaching. So they have started to tax digital products. So as you get into that space and start getting really good at selling people on your knowledge, just pay attention to that sales tax responsibility.
Thank you. Dropping those gems. Lorraine, you want to add anything there? Because I know them ebooks just be ringing up some days, right? And it goes back again to what Gerard and I think Deja both said, right? Using that platform to really amplify your audience, to reach your audience so that you can make the sale on your brand for something else.
Yeah, it's a traffic source. And if you've been in sales before, you understand that you got to constantly be adding people to your funnel. So that's the way I consider it. I've been an old school salesperson. I've been knocked on doors. I've dialed for dollars. I've been in inbound sales. I've done all that junk. So when I get a video and it has a couple of 100 views or 500 views, I always go back to where I came from. You know how long it would take me to knock on 500 doors out in the street? So every single view, I like to try to assign it to something. If I'm creating a piece of content, I'm trying to drive traffic somewhere, and it's definitely going to be away from the platform.
Thank you. So we've talked about, business planning, strategy, being consistent, building your online presence, right? Having and owning your platform if you can. Obviously engaging that audience, right? Making relatable content. Let's talk about growth, right? As content creators, we want our businesses to expand. What are some ways that you're growing or anticipate growing your business in the future? Lanisha, we'll start with you since you just ended the last conversation.
So the ways I continue to grow is if I get a partnership with a brand, let's say they come to me for like a 90-day trial, I use a survey to see how I can extend that relationship. So if they start out with like a 4-figure budget and the relationship is going well, I want to stay in their budget for another 90 days or 6 months. That's less customers or clients I have to go out and get. That's less relationship building that I have to do because I've already built the relationship. So going back into those profitable relationships I've already, worked on, I'm going to dive deeper into how I can stay within their profit and loss statement to get more revenue into my business, if that makes sense.
So, I like that. Stay in a line item, right?
Right. I don't want to keep working over and over again from square one if I don't have to. And then also kind of seeing like what other areas can I assist in, within that department or the division. I'm telling y'all, if you build relationships through one door, I don't care if it's the front door, the back door, the window, the garage door, just get in the door. And then you can figure out how to kind of take over the whole house, if that makes sense.
I love it. Gerard, how are you growing your business and continuing your operations?
I mean, I'm unapologetically black. I read a lot of stuff, and one function that I've learned is group economics. Like we can go further together than we can all of us trying to individually run a race. So partnerships is just a huge one that will intentionally scale. For instance, if I'm to reach out to Deja, who works in PR, who may have a client who may need video services, if we can collaborate on a project, we'll both be able to benefit from that, and vice versa. I may have a client that says, "Hey, I'm looking in like this just happened the other day, but I'm working with a nonprofit who wants to contract us out to create content, but in the meantime needs a PR person to tell the story from a more high level campaign over the course of time." And then I referred her to another black publicist. I didn't know Deja at that time, so I would use Deja. I made sure I can you after this.
That's okay. You
But
know me now.
yeah, exactly. But being able to refer to another black woman that I know who works in PR to bring into the fold. So I think that's one of those. I think it's really easy to when you're scrolling to be like, and they doing what I'm doing what they doing, let's do it together, right? Like there's another black owned video group here. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's another company. I don't look at them as competition. We share a lot of crew at the same time, right? Like we try to, if there's an opportunity that may or may not work for me, I can call up Lloyd Visuals. If Lloyd Visuals has something that may not work for them, and they're gonna call up Creators Collab. We work together. We go to the same barber, right? So we get further together. And then I say the other part on that is really how can you take your existing relationships with clients, with brands, and make sure you get referrals, or how can that leverage that to create more downstream revenue and opportunities instead of trying to go more blanket approach and you go a mile wide but you only go an inch deep. So maybe take your existing. So if you're working with if you're working with a new product drops, make sure you kill that content to where when they have a different drop in the fourth quarter that they call you back, right? Like that is how you can immediately grow and scale your business with your repeat customers, as opposed to, yeah, you should have new targets, you should have new goals, yeah, you should have all of that, but don't put too much or over index in just trying to find new. A lot of times is where I've had more success has been repeat. When I do a great project for Ally, then Ally calls me back. Then when I do a great second project, then they call me back, and then they call me back, and then they call me back. So that is where more growth happens, as opposed to always trying to find the new client, because the new client may or may not always be a fit. I really love when I'm able to really find a groove with the client that really like I understand their workflow, they understand mine, I understand their insights, they understand mine, and then there's just more of that. So I would say between partnerships and then how do I get referrals, those are two ways that you can just explode all of a sudden with less investment than you would over indexing your time and maybe running into a bad lead if you just keep trying to sell all the time.
Yeah, we call that, I think, persistency and risk management, right? Digging
Yeah.
deep on those existing relationships for those repeat buys. Deja, anything else to add in terms of growth and operation strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I think it's identifying what growth is for you. I know for me, it was more so about like building capacity. So like, when you start your business often, it's just you, or if you have a business partner, then it's just you and them. But like, having those conversations, defining what you want. I know personally what we wanted was to not be to create a business that was not only just going to be reliant on what the work that I did or my business partner did. So for me, that was like building out my capacity. So I like some of the points that we're touching on in terms of like, getting like the repeat clients, because that is how like a great way to grow. But I think it's like building capacity, like what systems are you using? Like how are you being more efficient? Like how can you improve your processes? Because I also feel like too, if you're like getting better on your customer service, like you can keep clients and you can also get word of mouth, and that will grow your business quicker than any marketing campaign that you're doing or anything, right? So I think that's like the key thing that I was focused on. It's just like, how do I get better and improve what I'm currently doing so that we can expand to like have more bandwidth.
No, that makes a lot of sense. We talked about that also. So, Jessica, I don't know if you want to chime in. We talked about making sure we're leveraging each other, right, going forward, because we are, again, the experts. We have some great professionals at the table on the stage right now. I think panelists yesterday talked about backlinking, just making sure that we're linking out to each other's sites and brands. Anything to add to wrap up that piece of the conversation, Jessica? Mhm. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So we do have a question in the chat, and I'm going to just toss this out, and anybody can grab it. So from Jaquan, how do you drive traffic to external links, your business, without coming across as selling to someone, right? So it's almost this flavor of authenticity, and I'll just throw that out to the group. Anybody can grab that question for me.
I have some thoughts. I think one, if you have to be clear on what your goal is as to be on social media, especially if you're a business owner, like it shouldn't matter, because if you're providing value, like you have to ask. Like people sometimes you have to spell it out for them. They're not always going to know, like, oh, well, they have something that I can buy, or they have something, to offer. So I think it's like putting out good content, but also like not being afraid to let people know like how they can support you. Like you have to tell people what you want from them, especially like we're in such a, social media is competitive, right? So like you have to tell people, like you can't be afraid to sell people.
Mhm.
Right. Yeah, and I think I'll jump in too. I think to your point, like you're always selling. I just think it's the mechanism of how you sell, and that is where again, if you're creative, what's that creative way to sell, right? If any of us, if you're on social media, if you follow a Drewski or a Desi Banks, they're selling, they're getting brand deals. They want to link you to an outside product. They want to link you to purchasing a ticket. Like they want to take you off the platform to be able to get you to monetize on something. So even in a comedy skit, you can sell, right? So at the end of the day, we're all selling something. That's where it is. You may be selling by being authentically you. You may be selling by telling a story. You may be selling by doing a skit. You may be selling by, doing whatever it is. That's just where the creativity comes across. But yeah, you're always selling. It just may mean, yeah, you may not have the car salesman, or you may not have like the super cheesy or super corny way of selling, but you're always selling, right? Even when you're not trying to get someone to buy something, you're selling yourself, right? You're selling your story, you're selling who you are as an individual. Like we're always and consistently selling. And so and for me personally, I've had to learn how to break through that mind. Like, man, I'm not an inside salesperson. I used to work for a sports team for the Hornets. I'm never going to be a salesman. I don't want to pick up the phone and cold call. And yeah, you may not be doing that, but I think just like Lorraine said, right? Like if you've got 500 views on a video, how can you make those 500 views work to you? So how can, if you have a course, if you have an ebook, if you have, services, if you consult, if whatever it is, like how can you try to monetize those views by sending them somewhere, right? So if they've landed on your platform, how can you take them to whatever it is? Or if you got a brand deal, right? Like how do you integrate whatever that piece of content is for that brand? And that's a big point I wanted to hit on too. So I wanted to make sure I hit on that. Like also understand if you're going to do a brand deal, also understand what that brand is, who they are, what they want to accomplish, who their audience is. Does it align with your followers? Does it align with your audiences? Do y'all have the same kind of integrity? All that matters, I think, when you're exploring brand deals. It's not always about how many followers you have. It's not always about like it can be exactly what is their core message? What is your core message? Do those things match? Do they not match? Right. So I think there's a lot of things you have to analyze yourself, but also do the due diligence of whatever brand you're working with to make sure it's a good fit. Because at the end of the day, they want to know, did you deliver ROI to them? If they gave you X amount of dollars or X amount of product or whatever it is, they want to know at the end of the day, was there a return on their investment? And so that's, I think, up to us as creators is to make sure, are we telling the right story when it comes to when we get these brand deals? Are we doing that effectively? Are we doing our research? Are we knowing, the back end of that brand or that corporation or whomever or that individual? Like, have we done our due diligence and not just saying, hey, I got 250,000 followers, work with me. Well, their question is going to be why, and you have to be able to answer that. Gerard.
You got it right. You got it right.
Oh, sure. So for me, it's about building community and being a resource. So I typically do it a little bit backwards than a lot of people do. I build the communities first, and then when they ask for things, then I develop products to sell. So, it's literally just me. Hey, remember when y'all asked for blah, 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 and y'all said, da, 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 well, here it is. Here's the link. And incorporating that into my storytelling. So for instance, I got a ebook right now that's selling really well on TikTok, and it's called 50 Side Hustles for Moms Who Want to Work from Home. So I've been telling a lot of stories about how I started my business, why I started my business, why it's important for moms to have income coming in, what can happen if you don't. Some of my wins, my success stories, like I've taken my 6-year-olds to Thailand and I've been able to travel with them around the world. I've got, a nanny, I've got house cleaners. I got these things, going for me, all because I was able to, develop this way of life that now I have, started to take the building blocks and create products with, so that other people can, decide that, maybe this is for me. And if it is, here is how I do it, type thing. So that's how I drive traffic to links without feeling so salesy. Yeah, am I a salesperson? Absolutely. Like, I think I was born to be a salesperson. I've been doing it for a very long time, in marketing and sales, something I absolutely enjoy. But you have to understand that there are steps in the sales process that you cannot skip. I don't care if you're doing it out in the streets, knocking on doors. I don't care if you're doing it online. You cannot skip the sales process. And that starts with prospecting. You got to prospect and understand who you're trying to get in front of. You've got to ask them what it is they need. Needs-based questioning. What do you need from me? Is what I have even going to be a good fit for you? If not, why are we continuing this conversation? Now, then you've got to learn how to present your product or service or whatever in a way that makes people inspired to buy from you. And then after that, there are going to be objections. You're going to have to understand that there are going to be times that people are going to tell you no, or they're going to be hesitant because, whatever reason, I don't have the money, or that I've been scammed before, or this or whatever. You have to get comfortable with people telling you no and overcoming those objections. Why are you telling me no? Well, you told me before when I asked you what it is that you needed, and I've been able to get this buy-in from you over time, little small buy-ins. You told me that if you didn't make a change, XYZ was going to happen. So now that we're at the point at which I'm asking you to buy, what changed? You know what I'm saying? So that's a long-term conversation, which is why I tend to focus on virality, because I understand that if I want to be consistent in my revenue, then that conversation takes a long time. I want to be able to make sales every day, not sales here or there or whatever. So when I'm dealing with consumers or I'm dealing with the masses, that's why I'm focused on the views in the analytics and stuff like that. I want large numbers, because I know sometimes those sales tend to be 1 to 3%. If you're real good, you're looking at maybe 10%. So I'm focusing on those analytics and those close rates and those things like that. So it's a numbers game. I'm an old school salesperson. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
I agree on that.
Yes.
Yeah, the more you put in the funnel, right, the more it's going to come out. So, Jessica, did you have a follow-up? I'm sorry, Deja.
Oh yeah, I was going to say in terms of, so like my process of more so with my digital products, and I think again it depends on what type of business. If you are a service provider, I definitely recommend having something that's high ticket, because like how I leverage my digital products is like I passively sell them, right, in most cases. So for instance, like I have like a ebook also that's like a top seller for me about PR, but the way that I sell it passively is that I have like a opt-in or a free offer that people will like typically download when they're just interested about PR in general, and it's like a checklist. And so because of like the systems that I use to for people to download the opt-in, the free opt-in, it automatically like encourages them to like buy the ebook as like another thing, because I understand, especially like if you're like a service provider and you have like something that's like high ticket, like that's not, I sell it on the internet, but the way I sell it is going to be completely different than I would sell like an ebook by chance. So I try to focus most of my efforts on my high ticket stuff, but I passively sell like my digital products, and I use it through my funnels and like my software that can like automatically do that for me.
That was it. Yeah, storytelling is it, right? I don't think you're a good marketer if you're not a storyteller. I don't think you're definitely not a good content producer or everything if you're not a good storyteller. And I think that pretty much a lot of the tips that I've given, or a lot of the advice that I've given, is rooted in like identifying what's the story, like what's the core message that you want to convey. I think that's critical, because if not, you're just going to be throwing a rock into the ocean and trying to track where it went, and that's going to be difficult. But if you have the story, then it makes everything that much more valuable. So for me, yeah, like I just know I'm a storyteller. I can figure out what is, if I have a client and they have either a problem, or they have something they want to highlight, or they have anything to where they want to get across this message, then it's up to me and my team to figure out how do we get them from here to here, right? And I think that resonates with all of us as content creators, right? Like you want to take people on a journey, right? Like, and everyone's journey is different and every story is different. So even from a storytelling perspective, that doesn't mean that every single piece of content that we do is going to be long form, is going to be a documentary. I love doing those kind of things, but sometimes it's just a 1 minute video because we know people's attention spans are that long, right? So I think everything is a story. And I think it's really identifying, one, what that story is, two, how you're going to tell it, and three, which, what I'm really big on is how authentic is it, right? Like we're all grown here. We know when something, it kind of goes back to the question that was thrown out in the chat. Like we know when something's fake. We know when someone's trying to sell us something, and we can pretty much sniff that out and say, nah, I'm good on that. So right, so you really have to figure out what's your message, what's your style. For some people, like I mentioned before, you got, the Drewskis, the Desi Banks, comedy is their thing, and that is the lens in which they create content, that they sell products. They use comedy. Someone else mentioned, right? Like the Black love experience might be, you might be a content creator and that might be your story. And you may be able to monetize folks like a Target or a Dove or P&G. I don't know, right? Like though, so that might be somewhere where you can play. So I think all of that is embedded by what's the story. And all of us have some sort of story. And it's up to you to be able to be fluid enough, to be versatile enough to figure out what that story is and how you're going to tell it. And then on the other end, like we're all business people, we want to make money. And so then how do you monetize that story?
Beautiful. So that brings us to the end of our session. Secrets revealed: building a profitable business as content creators. We talked about business planning and strategy, identifying your niche, all the way over to building a brand. We talked about funding and monetization strategies, really how you can start being a content creator and then obviously grow and scale. And then we really left you with some discussion on marketing and operations. So I'm going to ask our panelists to leave us with one final thought and tell us where we can find you online. Deja, kick us off.
I think one final thought. I know one thing that I didn't get to touch on when you were talking about like monetization, excuse me, and funding strategies. It's just like applying for grants. I remember like in 2019, I applied for a grant and it didn't have to be tied to a business. I was a business owner at the time. And someone in my community sent it to me. It was through Shea Moisture. They had this like holiday feels contest, and I won $5,000. All I had to do was do like a 30-second video, like introducing myself and telling them what I plan to do with the money. So it can be stuff that's simple like that. So like applying for grants, it doesn't always have to be tied to you having a business if you're not in that space to apply that way. So yeah, I just wanted to leave that with you all, and then you can I'll type in the chat, but I'm pretty much the same across all platforms. I am Deja Monet. So thank you.
Thank you, Deja. Gerard, one final thought and where we can find you online.
I'd say final thought is there's a piece of advice that I was given, and it's called bloom when you're planted. And so I think that resonates with the content creator community as far as wherever you are, wherever you're doing, like just bloom with it. Just continue to hone in on your message, continue to hone in on, what you're delivering, hone in on the products that you're delivering, like where you are right now, just bloom, right? I think too many times people are trying to, we talked about before, we're trying to shift. Oh, let me do this, let me do that. There's this new feature, like just hone in where you are, just bloom where you planted. For me, you can find me creators-collab.com on Instagram, at creators.collab, and then on my personal stuff, it's just my name. I'm pretty simple. I gotta get better with that. But no, just bloom where you planted.
Thank you. Lanisha, one final thought and where we can find you online. What's your personal brand?
I would say as you're getting opportunities in your DMs from brands or organizations or companies, be sure you're reading your contracts and agreements. Sometimes they'll try to put in your content is owned by them in perpetuity or something to that effect. So always get another set of eyes, legal eyes, to fight, in the instance of compensation or having your content be yours and not theirs. And just to have your back, that's it. And so I am on all social platforms under Polished CFO. And yeah, that's my final thought.
Thank you. And our keynote, Lorraine, where can we find you online and what's your final thought on building your brand as a content creator?
So a lot of us are coming into this content arena because we have businesses, right? We're trying to make money. We're trying to, drive traffic to all the things. My final thought would just to be open-minded. Don't overthink it. One of the easiest ways to start creating content is just to start creating content. Sometimes we think we have to have these fancy scripts and we have to have all these lighting things and a bunch of different backgrounds and all that other stuff. Literally, it's you and your camera, and you're not going to hone that skill unless you practice it, just like anything else. So don't overthink it. Don't try to be so hard on yourself at first. Just literally turn that camera on and start. You can find me on all social platforms at Lorraine Kamisha, mainly on TikTok, Facebook, and due to Jessica's nudging, on YouTube as well.
All right, Jessica, bring us home. Final thought and where we can find you online. We know you're everywhere. Our team at Content Creator Profit is shouting a huge thank you to the NC Idea Foundation for providing support for this event. Without their support, this summit would not have happened. NC Idea empowers North Carolinians to achieve their entrepreneurial potential by offering support when and where they need it most. Since 2006, NC Idea has awarded more than $18 million in grants to companies and partners throughout the state. One of their strategic focus areas is elevating Black entrepreneurship in North Carolina. The North Carolina Black Entrepreneurship Council leads North Carolina Idea, or NC Idea, in its programmatic and grant-making ambitions to address the challenges of Black entrepreneurship in North Carolina. To learn more about their programming, visit www.ncidea.org. A huge shout out to the NC Idea Foundation. They are doing some good work here in North Carolina and really are allowing us to have to amplify our voices in our own spaces. So because of them, we were able to put this event together this weekend and make sure that it was free for content creators who wanted the education. So thank you. So Jessica, Just Speaks Digital online. I am JJ Creatives. I'm probably on multiple platforms as well. Final thought, remember building a profitable business as content creators takes time, dedication, and perseverance. It's not going to happen overnight. Stay true to your vision, continuously refine your content, and adapt to evolving needs and preferences of your audience. So that brings us to the end of our session today. We hope to see you again this afternoon. Again, we do have a VIP session on the calendar, and then we'll kick off our next panel discussion today at 12:40 p.m. Eastern. Thank you all for joining, and thank you to our panelists.
Thank you. It was great.
And again, thank you, Gigi. Thank you, Jaquan.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. So we have to stay connected. Jessica, I'm going to put that on your list because I just think we have some great professionals and we got to do something together. We just have to. We got to collab and partner.